Hi everyone. How's everyone doing? I see Amitinho, Jace, Pasca, Nandi. Oi, Nandiara. Khalil, hello. Let's go, let's go. How you all doing? Good? Hi, hi. How's your Sunday going? Ready to... So, today, okay? I'm good, Khalil, thank you. Natalia. Hi, Natalia. Hello. Leo. Oi. Daria, e aí? Hi, hi, hi. Hi, Daria. So today we're going to do things a little bit different. I have a special guest today, and I'm waiting for him to join us. And when he gets here, I'll do a proper introduction. But I thought of inviting this person, someone with a ton of knowledge, and I think he can bring some very good insights for us and have a little conversation. I'm not going to say more than that. Let's wait for him to get here. He'll be here soon. For now, do you guys have any? Oh, just a reminder, this is, I'm Leticia Gillett. And it is not Mr. Gillett today, Jace. Mr. Gillett is a very shy man, but one day I'll bring him and then he will come talk to us. That's a good idea. Oh yeah, I'm Leticia Gillett, and this stream is sponsored by Lenovo. And do you guys have any questions so far what I've been doing, or suggestions of things? It's feeling so far with everything. You enjoying? Whoop! I see someone here. 1 second. Our special guest is here. Hey!
It's me, the special guest.
Yay!
I should have worn my Gnomon shirt.
Don't know. I have my Gnomon shirt.
I know.
It's very wrinkly. Like
you guys are in for cussing this week, so I'm here to balance Leticia's proper kindness and smiles and happiness with cussing and other fun things. Hello, everybody.
Hi, everyone. So, for those of you who don't know, Max, this is Max Dayan. Is that how you say your last name?
Yeah,
Dayan,
that's
right?
perfect.
Okay, and I made a little something here. Next, Director of Education at Gnomon. Okay, so this is some high-level stuff.
High-level stuff. Hello.
Hi. So Max, I'm gonna give a little bit of an introduction of my experience with you, and then you can do your own introduction of what you're up to right now, etc. Cool. All right. So my experience with Max was this. Okay, I came from Brazil about 12 years almost ago, and my first class, I think it was basically with you, which was Intro to Maya. Okay, and right away, watching his class, I knew he was going to be my mentor. You know what I mean? Like, and I say this all the time, like fundamental classes, when you take those classes with someone that knows what they're doing, it changes your whole life, you know? Because instead of like learning bad habits and things like that, you're really learning things, the hows, the whys, the insides, outsides of things. And that was my experience with Max, not just on introduction to Maya, but also introduction to a hard surface modeling, which was something that I was very scared of before taking that class. I mean, I'm going to talk more about it, but I'll let you introduce yourself now, Max.
Okay. Yeah, so my name is Max Dayan. I'm the Director of Education at Gnomon. I've been there pretty much since you started. You were one of my earliest terms, so about 11 years. I'm also a graduate of the program in 2006. so a long time ago. And yeah, so I oversee the hiring, training of our instructors. I oversee intro to Maya curriculum, as well as like the technical modeling stuff, like Leticia said, the hard surface 2 class. I've taught a host of things there. And then I, mentor students. I help them, both with their technical skills, art skills, and career skills, and try to make sure that they're prepared, that they get what they need from Gnomon, but also evolve as a person and hopefully represent themselves in the school in their professional career. I'm a generalist by trade. I started as a character artist and then quickly adapted to other skills. So, but primarily modeling, texturing has been where my strongest suits have been professionally. And yeah, that's about it for me. I'm happy to be here. I'm super excited that I was invited. I feel very honored to be the first guest.
Of course.
And yeah, anybody has any questions about just art, CG, Gnomon, whatever it is, feel free to blast them in chat. I'm happy to do my best to answer anything that you guys have questions about.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely Max was my first mentor at Gnomon, and I knew everything I wanted, like what he said, not just about 3D, but even like career-wise or advice on like different other classes I was taking. I knew I could always come to you and ask stuff, and because you just have that passion for teaching, that it it just makes you have to help people, even when you don't have the time.
Sure. How do you want to handle questions? Do you want me to just take it if it's there, or do you want to?
Yeah, you can.
Do you want to run the show?
No, you do you. Okay. You do you.
So Rush Cahoots says, have you looked at the current trend in AI generated art? Because I have one-clicked some of the best art I've ever seen in my life. It's both amazing and worrying. Yeah, I mean, I think everybody has to have at some point now had some experience. Sorry, I'm gonna turn my camera down a little bit. It's a little high. Everybody has to have seen something that's AI at this point if they're on the internet, because it's just everywhere. And I actually have played quite a bit with the AI stuff. What was it? A couple years ago, there was an app on the phone called Wombo. This is before all of the current disco diffusion stuff was out, and I had a lot of fun with it. But I don't think that it is in any way, shape, or form at this current stage like a replacement for anything that we're doing. If art to you is color and shape, then the AI stuff is great. But for me, art is storytelling. And a lot of those images, although they may be new or different than anything you've ever seen before, I don't know that they're necessarily the best vehicle for telling a story, for really directing a viewer and engaging with them. They can be great for automatically generating stuff. I was talking to a person recently who's a high up, concept artist in our industry about it. And I said, when Sparth, if you're not familiar, Sparth is a concept artist. He developed a technique where he would use like the lasso tool in Photoshop to just make random shapes. And then he would use those random shapes to generate vehicles and characters and whatever else from it. And that's really no different than what the AI is doing, right? Like found shape, concept art or illustration. This AI is just letting you like kind of go off on your own deal. Like you could use a random word generator and pull photos off the internet and pull those into Photoshop and do the same thing the AI is doing. It would just be more work. It would be directed by you. And so the point that I would make about AI is when Disney announced P-Text, everybody said we would never do UVs again. When Zbrush came out and was a sculpting app, everybody said that we would never need to model again. When people started 3D scanning, there was never going to be a need for modelers to make anything because we could just scan it all. And so the visual effects industry and digital art world has always been plagued with technology showing up and everybody freaking out and going, this is going to change it all and nobody's ever going to have a job. And because look, the computers can do it. And I see the AI stuff as being kind of the same way. There will be companies that don't want to spend money who will generate AI art and their product will be inferior. It's how it is, because you have these people who study for years and years and years on how to do what they do and how to move people. And it's more than just creating imagery. It's about how do you connect with the audience and make them relate to what you're doing. So yeah, I don't know that it's worrying. I think that it's cool. It's interesting. Maybe in 10 years, you'll just, hook your brain diodes up and it'll make a video game for you. And at that point, what can any of us do about it? But right now, I think we're good.
Yeah, at least until we retire, hopefully.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, all you young kids, just like the
Then
environment.
everything can change.
Just like the environment, art is dead.
Yeah.
Sorry. Metahuman, I mean, Metahuman's great, but it's photorealistic people, right? It's still just a small subsect of what we do. Like Metahuman can't do what Leticia does. It can't do so much. They can't do fantasy. It can't do stylization. It can't do anything. So like, yeah, like I think that as a character artist who worked primarily in like digital double work and like photorealistic people, like I didn't necessarily want to do that. What I wanted to do at work was make dragons and superheroes and creatures and cool stuff. Like, but when I had to make like 5 mailmen for a movie, I would love to have had a tool where I could go, give me 5 generic people that are already animated so I can go off and do fun stuff. So, yeah, I think Metahuman's great. It'll allow indie developers to raise the bar of their character work without having the skill, the skill sink and time commitment necessary. But at the same time, it's like we've been able to scan people forever. Like, it's been 15 years of being able to sit down and make a photorealistic human with a couple of cameras or a laser scanner. So all Metahuman really does is just make it more accessible to people who don't have the experience, don't have the tools, da 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 da. So it's great. It's just like Mixamo for motion capture data. It's like forever only people with stages could do that, but now indie artists and amateurs, and I think it's great because people that I teach, right? Like they get caught up in like sculpting, they get caught up in like the things that they like, a lot of static art, but having these opportunities to be able to make your own stuff and then quickly get it animated, quickly get it moving and bringing life to it is huge. It's like, it's awesome that the tools are as cool as they are now, because as artists, that means we can push ourselves farther, not be scared that, there's a tool that does it. But thanks for the questions.
Yeah. I have a question for you, Max. You've been at Gnomon for a while and you've been teaching for a long time. What would you say are the things that you think seeing your students are the most successful patterns for them to succeed in this industry?
Sure. It's a really, really easy question, right? Because I deal with people of varying levels of experience coming into Gnomon, various levels of aptitude coming into Gnomon, people with good memories, people with bad memories. And at the end of the day, what I've seen in my time, of working with people is it's 100% attitude, regardless of the skill level you bring into something, regardless of if you have 10 years experience in 3D before you get to school, or you are brand new to it. The people who enjoy like the failure, the people who just are positive about what they're doing, it's so easy to be negative. It's so easy to feel like you're not capable of doing stuff that other people are doing. It's so easy to get into this world of like comparing yourself to everyone else. But if you just like enjoy the process of learning and discovering and improving, like that mentality keeps you focused. That mentality keeps you pushing through the negativity. And I think every single person I know has had, if not a bout of that, like a consistent deal of, am I good enough? Imposter syndrome. Everybody around me is better. I'm never going to be as good as the people I look up to, blah, 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 blah. But the people that I see that just succeed regardless of where they are in their starting point, it's just like, it's like the people that you critique and they're like writing down the notes and going like, I'm going to fix this, even though they might be internally like, oh my God, I suck. Like they're like, no, this is how I get better. Right. And then they go and they do all that stuff. So I don't believe in talent. I think everybody who's ever been in a room with me has heard this, is like, I don't believe in talent. I don't believe in skill. I think that anybody can do what we do. But if you have a positive attitude, that becomes much, much, much easier. And then the next one is community. The students so the two big things is, do you have a positive attitude? And then are you surrounded with a community of people that, support you and help you and get over it? Because I'm a big believer that like you individually by yourself can do great things, but you will never be able to reach the potential that you have by yourself. the way that someone who has a group of people that are supportive and want to see them succeed, and are helping them, whether that's critique or just being there emotionally, or someone who's really technical who's showing you little tips and tricks along the way. But having that group of people who are working through the same problems that you are, is huge. So something that I tell everybody at Gnomon all the time is like, I've seen a direct correlation between students who work on campus and build their community and the students who are really good but sit at home. Like there's a very, very big difference in how far those students who are on campus working go compared to the ones that want to be comfortable at home. And I think that's really, what sums that whole thing up is like, it's about not being comfortable. Everybody wants to be comfortable, right? It's like, it's great to be in bed and like have your cats and shit around you, but at some point it's like, you got to be focusing on yourself and putting yourself in a position where you're benefiting, from all the possible things that could help you, not just like hard work. Hard work is great, but community and support and 10 minds are better than one. Those types of concepts I think are huge. So I think positive attitude and a community are the two biggest things. People say hard work. Go ahead.
Yeah, even community, I would say, like there's a healthy competition also, right? You kind of like, I remember being a Gnomon and then doing stuff, and then I would see what people are doing, and you're like, oh, I need to up my game, I gotta push this homework more or something, because you want to feel like you growing together, and that's one of the feelings at Gnomon is like everyone is so much doing their best. Like, let's say a lot of the people there, that you kind of get in that, it's almost like you gotta move with the block, you gotta move with it, or you feel like you falling behind very fast. So it keeps you very in check, and like you said, like uncomfortable in some degree, so
yeah, you should never be upset or like physically uncomfortable, but like
right.
all of the growth that we have like comes from being out of our comfort zone. Like everything you already know how to do is comfortable, right? So if you are doing the things, I mean, I think you've probably heard it when you were a student. It's like you have students that come in, they're already good at something, and I'll be like, this is great, you already know how to do this. Now do the things you're not good at. Like don't focus on the things that are comfortable that you know how to do. Focus on all the things that you don't know how to do. Because if you just sit there and do the same thing that like you're not growing. And so I think that for us, it's like, when you have a professional and someone is as talented as you and as hardworking as you, who's constantly, I think a couple of weeks ago, you were talking about like how you take classes all the time. And like, you were mentioning all these different classes you've taken. And it's like, I mean, I think anybody can see your student portfolio and recognize like how hard you worked and how successful you were as an artist coming out of Gnomon. Like you were very, very prepared and you knew what you were about and your quality bar was very high. So why does someone in your position go out and start seeking more education after, hopefully, and I'm speaking for you, like you have this great education at Gnomon, you have all these great teachers, you learn a ton of stuff, you've got a job, right? And everything is going the way you planned it. Like, why are you taking classes? Like, why are you seeking out more knowledge? And I think that that's really the key, like that you're not comfortable, even though all of these people around the world, in the United States, Brazil, Europe, everywhere, like see your work and look up to you and go, I want to do what she does. But you're over here taking a class going, I can be better. And I think that that's the thing that a lot of young artists don't understand, is that the people that they look up to are the people creating art. They're never stopping. Like they're not sitting there going, oh yeah, when I was 27, I was able to do this stuff. And now I'm 35 and I just kind of do it. It's like, you're constantly assessing your skill set and being like, well, what do I need to understand? And then I think when you get more mature, like you are with your career, where you've been doing this for quite a while, you start to leverage like less technique and more like fundamental knowledge, like storytelling, shape language, color theory, stuff that young artists can kind of like gloss over because they're so interested in like, just show me the tools you're using. Cause that's the big hurdle, is the tech hurdle. And then you learn how to do everything in there and you go, why do I still suck at this? And you're like, oh, I don't understand design. I don't understand anatomy. I don't understand any of these other fundamental skills. So yeah, I think that you're right on it. And it's that being uncomfortable leads you to self-improvement. And then that idea of positivity is how you deal with the uncomfortable nature of doing things you're not good at. And I tell people, like, if art is different, because nobody just like falls out of the sky and goes, I'm going to be an artist. Like it's something that you're doing, and you're doing it in your own world, and you're sketching at home or whatever for a while. And then you hop in and say, oh, I really want to do this for a living. I really want to focus on this, and you try something and you suck at it and you're like, I hate this and I don't want to suck at this again. Like, I don't want to do this again. And so when you have that positive attitude, you're like, I did this and I sucked at it, but I learned something. Let me try again. And like, that is the thing that makes the biggest difference.
Yeah. And I'm going to connect this. I know some people send other questions. Let me just ask one more question. You know, when you and I were young, we would copy our cartoons watching on TV, or there was a friend in school that liked to draw and whatever, right? But this day and age, all the kids now, they have access to all these huge artists, these young artists that are just like killing it on the internet. And there's so much going on. When you see students these days coming to Gnomon with that kind of like access and that kind of global competition, do you see a level of anxiety or like cockiness from like watching tutorials and things like that? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's always been that way. Like, I mean, like, yes, the world is more connected and there's more people posting stuff on the internet than there ever was, and things are more accessible than they've ever been. And there's tools like the AI stuff and the metahuman stuff where people can like really circumvent a lot of trial and error that you used to be forced into, right? Like, if you wanted to make a person in CG 15 years ago, you couldn't go press a button and have a photoreal human spit out. You know, there wasn't a website to download high resolution, displacement maps and stuff like that. So but it's always been that way. Like I teach Intro to Maya, and people learn 3D in a lot of different applications. So like today the flavor is Blender. At some points it was Modo and Cinema 4D and 3D Studio Max. And so you always get into that thing where there's a little bit of cockiness of like the certain amount of experience they have. But I find that cockiness, it doesn't last very long, because there's a very big difference between like watching some tutorials and doing some 3D work and then like being invested in something for 20 years, right? And so you can have a certain level of confidence going in, but that confidence typically will wane fairly quickly once you realize that your teachers aren't people that watch the same tutorial as you that are sitting across the desk. They're people that do it for like 60, 80 hours a week for like 10, 15 years. And then you have a different appreciation when someone can break something down for you and steer you in a direction or explain why a certain technique doesn't work in a certain workflow. So that's always been there. And as far as anxiety and stuff concerned, it's very weird, because one thing that I've noticed recently is that there's a lot of younger artists who are super not connected. And everybody on this channel, like watching right now, is going to roll their eyes, because they're people that are on Twitch and YouTube and seeking out tutorials and, trying to grow. So they're going to be like, no, everybody does it. Everybody goes on and they're all connected and they all understand this. But I see a lot of young people who are oblivious, like who find out about us from a high school counselor or something like that. And they are just someone who sits at home on their iPad doing their own thing, and they don't look at YouTube. They don't research their own stuff. They're not familiar with the softwares or the industries. And so there's this certain element where it's like, it's all over the place. I don't think you can put any one person into a group and say that everybody who's under the age of 20 right now does this, and everybody from 20 to 25, they're like this. So there's always anxiety at Gnomon. There always has been, and I think that there always is, because a lot of people are going outside of their comfort zones. They're sacrificing a lot of relationships and money and time to follow a dream, and everything hinges like in a very serious way for some people, and they don't deal with that very well, which is fine. I mean, it sucks for everyone, but some people just, get a little bit more distracted and emotional by it. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's increased necessarily. I mean, I've seen, amazing art coming into Gnomon 10 years ago before any of this stuff really was a thing. And I see amazing art coming into Gnomon now, and I see garbage 10 years ago and I see garbage now. But really, it's like I said, we look at the attitude and the creativity and the range. We don't necessarily look for like the most polished portfolio. One misconception people have about Gnomon, because the artwork coming out of Gnomon is so good, meaning the students graduating their reels is so good, is that everybody that comes to Gnomon was already good before they got there. And that's not it. We're looking for attitude and creativity and range and purpose and these other things that are tangible in people. Like, yes, you can look at someone's art and go, they're a good artist, but that doesn't necessarily mean they have the right attitude and the right aptitude and the right drive to be successful. So we deal with so many different types of people. It's hard to answer that second part of that question, where it's like,
Yep.
I think everybody is human and they all have a different story. They've all gotten there in a different way. And so I've told everybody this, and I've told you this when you taught in Gnomon, right? It's like being a great, like there's being a teacher, being a good teacher, and being a great teacher, right? So
Right.
being a teacher is knowing your material, right? Being a great teacher is knowing your material and being passionate about it, like really, really, truly enjoying your material. And everybody at Gnomon that teaches knows their material and is passionate about it. They have to be in order to do what they're doing. Occasionally, maybe somebody isn't as passionate and they're burnt out, but they don't last very long at the school. And then to be a great teacher, there's that psychology part, which is the question you're asking. Like, how do you take someone who is English second language, who's shy, and try to get them motivated versus someone who wants to be yelled at and beat down and like driven, like you can do this, and if you don't, you're a failure. And everybody reacts differently. And so I think that's the what you have to do to really like push past those, like the arrogance that you're asking about and the lack of confidence or the anxiety. It's about learning who those people are and what makes them tick, and like being able to break those things down and promote good work habits and whatever else they need to succeed. So I don't think there's a difference in people. 11 years and I feel like everybody's the same. I'm getting older, they're staying the same age, and that's basically it.
Awesome. Let me see some of the backlog here. Some questions. Okay, Martin said, I'm doing an art test for an animation studio I got a job offer from. I'll be tasked with modeling and typeframe from a concept, and I'm wondering if you have any tips on how I can blow their minds.
Well, I have one tip for working for concept art. I assume this is directed towards me, but I'd love to hear your approach on it too, Leticia.
Yeah. Sure.
So one of the things that I repeat ad nauseum for my class when we're working from concepts is that the biggest thing with working from a concept is you're not ever there to copy a concept. You're there to improve it. You're there to fix the problems in anatomy and structure and design, to understand what the concept artist was trying to communicate in their visual storytelling languages, and then pick up on that with your own research and your own ideas and really make it better than it is in 2D, because you have 3 dimensions to work from. You can fix every problem and create so much more awesome storytelling than someone who's just doing a single illustration. And I'm assuming, based on it being an art test, they're going to give you the minimum amount of information that you need to be successful, because that's what they want to see you do. They want to see you bring your artistry into the concept. And so what a lot of younger artists, I think, misconstrue when they start turning concept art into 3D is they want to just photocopy it. Like everything is there and that's what it should be. And then the problem is that you're copying all of the mistakes. And sometimes those mistakes may even be intentional, meaning that like the artist has very little time to do certain things. And so they don't finish out the feet, or they don't put as much effort into certain materials. And then you as a 3D artist go in and say, well, this is what it looks like, so I'm just going to make it blue. And you're like, nothing is blue. Blue isn't a thing. It's not a material. It's not an object. It's just a color. So what is it there? And how do you tell a story with that? What fabrics that you choose, the outfitting decisions that you make, the posture that you pose your character in, the facial expressions, all of those things play into the impact that your model will have. So I say, don't ever change a concept. You never go into a concept and change it because you think the pants should be a different style of pants, but you improve every part of it. So don't trace it, improve it, and don't ever change things because you think like I gave it 4 fingers because I thought it would be cooler. No, that's changing. That's not improving. But if there's something that's misunderstood, or you feel like you can add something to the character, like maybe you're doing like a pirate, like a female pirate character, and you've got this great concept, but like fish hooks for earrings, they might not have been in the concept, nobody thought about it, but you're like, whoa, maybe I can add some of these nautical themes and some of these like fisherman themes and pirate themes into areas that aren't really discovered. And those little things are the things that you see on Reddit when someone's like freeze framing something from Disney and they're like, oh my god, did you see in the background the number on this door is actually like Wally's name in Morse code? And you're just like, those are the things that artists are doing to like tie the story together, those Easter eggs and those storytelling devices that people like fall in love with. And you as a character artist have the opportunity to do that in every decision that you make. And if you haven't seen it, if you want to double down on this, I believe I want to say it's a Gnomon thing that was hosted by Adam Hartle with Neville Page. It was like within the last year or so, and he talks about designing some stuff from Star Trek. And I really highly recommend and go and watch that, because if you want a masterclass in someone who's like every single element on this like crazy complex armor that he's doing, he's like, if you look here on the kneecap, if you flip this upside down, it's like the Klingon logo like carved into a skull, because this is a skull where like every element of his design has like something that's like selling back to who this character is and what their station in life is. And like, I mean, it's not just noise. Nothing is just, I need to fill in some space, right? So I think that that's my best piece of advice for working on an art test or just working on anything is like, improve it. Whatever you're doing, improve it. Don't just look at a picture and make a picture.
Yep, I would say the same thing. Like, they expect you to do the research. So what I see sometimes, people when they ask me to see some art test, is just what you said is like they're just trying to copy as much as possible, and that's fine. Obviously, you want to nail as much as you can, but if you don't do the research, if you don't collect the images and stuff, you're gonna get stuck with only that. And for you to improve upon, you need to have a library, a mental library of information, right? So what Max said, for example, oh, she's not wearing any earrings. Maybe I'm going to do something, but you're just going to put a dot? No, you can do so much more for storytelling, you know? So research, and again, the idea of improving upon, it's very important. They want to see like, where can you find the things that are off and you're making it better, basically, right?
Mm-hmm. It is live.
It is live, Hannibal.
We did it. We're all alive today.
Max, we have I'm going to show you.
Yeah.
Robo said, I'm a marginalized indigenous descendant from the world's most mixed race group from South Africa, Cape Color. Would I be accepted in Gnomon?
Absolutely. Everybody's accepted in Gnomon. The biggest thing with Gnomon is just like, do you have you put in the time to build yourself up to a level where you can succeed at Gnomon? So Gnomon is a portfolio school. So any race, creed, color, religion, anybody in the world from anywhere in the world can study at Gnomon, and will be treated the same as every other student there. But getting into Gnomon is about having developed a certain level of skill and portfolio and awareness of what Gnomon is, in order to be able to succeed there. Because we take our mission statement super seriously, in regard to, you know, like, our mission is, you know, helping people get careers in computer graphics, right? Like, so film, commercial, television, games, virtual production, feature animation, whatever it is. And so in order to make sure that that mission is met, we need to make sure that the students that come to Gnomon are prepared for the rigors of the program, have at least some experience. It doesn't have to be on a computer. It doesn't have to be painting. It could be whatever, but have some experience in the world of art, design, creation, technical skills, whatever it is, so that we know that they'll adapt. So that's my thing. But yeah, you should never let, I can't speak on where you're from, but your sexual preference, your race, your height, your speech,
small. I would accept.
Yeah. None of that has a bearing on your success. It's don't ever let things like that get in your way. And like, you may be from a place where there is that kind of unfortunate, you know, segregation and shittiness in society where you are marginalized. But focus on improving yourself, focus on becoming better, and like, let your skill in your art like kind of transcend any prejudice and terrible shit that people believe. And I think one thing I've been saying for years and years and years, at least in the artist side of the community, obviously there's a lot of people in our industry that aren't in the artist part, that are in, you know, corporate stuff and, you know, management and marketing and whatever. But from the art standpoint, the thing that I've loved is that our industry has always been performance driven. Like I've worked with transgender people before transgender was a talking point. And like it was never an issue. It was never like, oh my God. It was like, that person's an amazing artist and we're making amazing art at work. That's what I want. So I think the one thing that I love about the professional art world is that, at least from the artist standpoint, you're accepted if you can hang, if you can make the art, if you're passionate about it, if you talk the talk. There's not that same level of kind of negativity that we see in a lot of other places in like the corporate world. And I'm not saying it doesn't exist, and I'm not trying to marginalize anybody's experiences. I'm just saying that in art itself, like in that particular part of it, I haven't been like privy to a lot of those scenarios. Definitely crazy shit at different companies when it comes to management and promotions and stuff. But yeah, just be an awesome artist, be a cool person, and hopefully things will work out for you.
Yeah, be a good person. Also, like my experience at Gnomon was it already so many people from different parts of the world, different backgrounds, different sex orientation or whatever, and it just like it's just like almost like it is that minority already. That's the group. That's a diverse group of Gnomon. You know, it's very rare. You, at least in my experience there, is it's just people all over the world with all different cultures. So it's very fun because you end up surrounding yourself with so much that you have to learn and to like there are people I met that from countries that I didn't even, you know, I mean I learned in school but I never met anyone or I didn't know anything about it, and then you learn so much just by being around those people, right?
Sure.
Okay, we have a question here. If I upload portfolio on ArtStation and also on my main website, do I still need to submit resume or portfolio is strong enough?
I think that it would depend on where you're applying to, and like the company. I think that the realistic answer is yes. Everything you can do to put yourself like with one foot forward is a good idea. So, you know, I understand that early on in your career, especially, it can be hard to have a resume that looks like impressive. So, you know, you can always, if you're lacking professional work and you're worried that your resume doesn't show a lot of professional work, then, you know, focus on your education, even if that's tutorials, videos that you've watched, classes that you've taken online, whatever it might be. You know, you can always look into some online systems like provide certificates and things like that for completion, which, you know, you can put into things that you've done, you know. So if it's an issue of your resume just feeling like it's like very limited, I can understand that. But your resume, ultimately, it has all of your contact information at the top. It explains kind of where you've come from. And if your portfolio is really good, then your resume won't matter, but it still should exist.
Yes.
So it's just one of those things that most people are going to require. I mean, I require a resume from people who are literally like 10-year, 15-year veterans at studios. It's like, oh, you're the modeling supervisor at DreamWorks. I need to see your resume. Not because I don't know. I know them. I see on LinkedIn that they're doing it. I know people that like literally report to them in the studio personally, but I still have to like verify who this person is and where they went to school and what they've accomplished in their life. And it doesn't mean that I'm going to, you know, look at a bad resume and then judge someone by it, but it's definitely a part of the process. And in many places it's a requirement, not only by the company, but just by the governing bodies that run those companies. You know, it's like their HR teams or their marketing teams may require that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So,
Also, I always like to say, like, never leave room for guessing, right? Neither on your portfolio, meaning like if you're a modeler, make sure you have your model images, your wireframes with a good lighting, the concept next to it so people can compare the decisions you make from the concept to the 3D. Same thing goes to when you apply. You know, if you leave your resume behind, you're giving room for them to be like, but what about, and when you leave that room for them to guess things, normally the mind is to tend to go to the ones that are more structured, that is clear who is that person, have all the information, you know. So you, like Max said, it's always good to give all the information they need, because that again doesn't takes the guessing part. Like, do you think he ever worked somewhere? You don't want that. You don't want your recruiter thinking that, because that person literally is gonna take 5 minutes, 10 minutes of their day to look at your stuff. So if you let them be wondering about if you did A or B things, they're gonna move forward. There's not much
Absolutely.
room.
Yeah, it's respecting people's time and putting your best foot forward. I see it a lot. I see a lot of lazy portfolios. Even with students trying to get in school, not students trying to get jobs, where you're just like, just spend one day organizing this in a way that is um like respectful of the people who are going to look at it, like in a way that it's nice and clean and it's straightforward, and you tell us what you're doing. So it's super super useful to just. I think one thing I learned in art school from one of my art teachers that learned it from one of his art teachers was presentation is in many times is as important as the art itself. Like if you don't show that you care about your art in the way that you've created it, other people will not care. So even the best illustration that's mounted on the wall sideways or not framed properly, or I see it a lot of times with people who do traditional art, they'll take a photo of it. It's like, your phone can crop that image in 11 seconds. Just crop it. Like,
Please.
show me the art. Don't show me your crooked paper with your dirty ass desk. Like, show me the thing you want me to look at. So it's like this like rushed and like and honestly, you can say it's like, I just didn't know better, but it's laziness, because you don't see that on Instagram and the stuff that you're looking up to. You don't see that in people's portfolio and the stuff you're looking up to. So when you're putting your stuff together and you're treating it like it's garbage, I'm treating it like it's garbage. When I see it, I'm like, this person doesn't care. Like, so why am I supposed to care? Like, how can you expect anybody to care about stuff you don't care about?
So, and I think one good thing about that is always when let's say, for example, when I was going to apply for animation, I was researching how those people that are already there presenting their work. How, like, so for example, artists A, B, and C, I go to the website, see how they presented the work, see if there's something I could learn from that and apply to my own portfolio, my own reel. So don't be, what Max just said is basically like, you're not collecting reference on how to present. Everything's about reference, right? So how do I collect reference from other artists to how to present my work in the best way possible, right?
Yep.
Cool.
Reference. I'm sorry to hear that, Jace, but every shitty job that you lose is just an opportunity for a new job that is not shitty. Like I tell people all the time, you get your dream job and then you get there and you don't like it, right? Like, obviously it's not your dream job, right? Like your dream job is going to be somewhere where you want to go to work every day and you want to create with those people. So if you got a job and you got fired and it was because of stupid things, or bad people that you just don't want to be around, so you quit, don't ever lament on that stuff. Just move forward and you will eventually find a place that you fit in and that you get to be the person that you want to be. And always just keep improving your skills. Wherever you are right now is never good enough, kind of like where we started this conversation off with. So if you're out of work right now looking for more work, then just keep working. Just build your own stuff. Go and make the things that you want to make, and keep honing your skill set. Because if you're not getting where you want right now with the current body of work and experience that you have, it's not going to change by sitting there just hoping for work. Right? You gotta sit down and you gotta, like, you're an artist, you're a creative, sit down and create, make things, improve your skills, and people will see that. Even when you submit for jobs and someone says, hey, you're not ready for this, it's like, I want you to resubmit. Like, if you submit, I had modelers all the time, they would submit their stuff, this guy's not ready, the guy sends his stuff back 6 months later and his whole portfolio is different. I'm hiring that guy immediately, because that shows a drive and a desire that this person, he loves modeling, he loves creating things. He's not doing this because he wants a job at our studio. He's doing this because he's going to do it no matter what. And so those people get hired just purely on, like, even if their art isn't that good yet, they're getting hired just on their attitude and their improvement. But if someone sends me the same portfolio back 6 months later, I'm like, dude,
I already said no to this
portfolio.
Yeah.
You've had 6 months to show something.
What do you think is gonna happen, friend?
How are you doing?
Before we go to the next question here, I have one question for you. Like, a lot of times I get asked, like, oh, I want to work somewhere some animation studio, but right now I'm working at a studio and they make me make cars every day. How do I get to go to those studios? What would be your advice on that?
It's just that, like, if you don't do things you don't want to do professionally, right? So the counter advice is do the things that you want to do. So if you want to make cars, I have a student right now, for instance, that's an extension student who's taking hard service too. And we were talking on Wednesday or Thursday after class or on break on class. And he was like, I want to model cars so much. Like, that's my thing. I just love cars. I want to model cars. And I'm like, then you don't need to take any other classes after this. Just model cars until you're really good at it. Right. Like that's the key. Cause if you're doing that and you're doing great work at it and it's what you love, then you're gonna be fine. But with that being said, I think that there is a really, really important kind of like subtext to that, like just make the art that you want to make, which is that a lot of time people get caught up in like, I'm going to take this class, like stylized character, or I'm going to take this class environment for games, or I'm going to take this class weapon design. And that class is the only class I'm going to need because that class specifically explains a certain process to do this one thing. And what they don't really realize about those kind of classes, like your class, like when you were teaching like stylized character creation, like that class is at the very end of a 2-year or 4-year program. Like the students who come into there are already like proficient ZBrush artists. They've already done hair systems before. They have a ton of modeling and texturing experience, and they're focusing in on a very specific skill set within that thing. So their success in that stylized character world hinges on a lot of previous experience. And so so when my advice of like, oh, I want to model cars, what should I do? And it's like model cars every day, but at the same time, like knowledge of the animation tool set, knowledge of rendering, knowledge of material building, knowledge of modeling, obviously, is huge. And I get a lot of people who want to be like modelers, and I'm like, okay, we're going to learn ZBrush like in this class. Like we have a couple of weeks of ZBrush and hard surface too. And they're like, oh, I don't know ZBrush and I don't really want to use it. And it's like, look, man, I mean, I'm a hard surface technical modeler. I can do everything in Maya that I would ever be able to do in ZBrush. But the reality is that it's way faster to do certain shit in ZBrush, and it's way faster to do certain shit in Maya, like in sub-D modeling. So you can't pick and choose the tools and processes that you want and the knowledge that you need to be successful, but it's always do the things that you're into. Don't turn away from new knowledge. Always move towards experiences and gain as much knowledge and experience as you can. But don't like make a portfolio with a bunch of like photorealistic naked women like with like fangs and blood and machine guns and then be like, I really want to work at Disney, because like Disney's not making that movie. Like it's not coming out.
No.
Like Moana 2, like the murderer machine is not going to happen, guys, no matter how much you want. So so like focus your towards the audience, meaning the studios and the projects that those studios do, and be well-rounded. It's great to be an awesome modeler, but I think modeling in production becomes slightly different than people really expect it to be. I think you talked about this a few weeks ago about all of the different things that you do when you're doing like kind of those look dev models versus like the production stuff. And so I think that like a lot of the most successful people, or I remember a conversation that you and I had that I'm going to pat myself on the back for, where you came back from Blizzard and you were like, I think you were telling me about like what Overwatch's pipeline was. And you're like, yeah, it's so much of this Maya modeling stuff that you were talking about in class. And I'm so glad that we did that. I forced myself to do that stuff because it's like everything I'm doing over here. And it's kind of like that thing, right? It's like you stepped up to that moment and you said, I'm going to do these things that make me uncomfortable. And you put in the effort and the time, and then you got a job that at the time I think was a very high level like goal for you. Like you wanted to do what that job. It wasn't just like you took it because it was there. And that skill set and that stuff that you stepped outside of your comfort zone to learn was like the difference between you struggling at that job and you being able to achieve what you did there. And so I think that that's the point I'm trying to make. It's still modeling, but it maybe isn't the thing you like the most. It's like still learn it, still dig into it. But yeah, just make the art you want. But don't. I think one of my maxisms that I think is one of the most important things that I say is, one of the stupidest things that you can do as just a person, but I'll speak on like artists, is believe that you know what the future holds. Like thinking you know what you need to know to be successful is like, it's death. It's like instant career suicide, because you go into school and you're like, I want to do this, and therefore X, Y, and Z are the only things I need to know. And it's like, you don't know how the future is going to unfold. You don't know what you're going to need to know to be successful. So I think a successful outlook to life is learn everything you can and let time dictate what's important and what's not. Like, just be a constant conduit for new information, just assuming as much information as you possibly can. And then if you need it, you need it. And if you don't, you don't. But having that information in your back pocket is the difference between succeeding and failing. And so, yeah.
Yeah. And I think for me, my experience at Gnomon, I think the classes that I remember the most, that being on that discomfort, meaning equals learning place, were the classes where I had to do realistic characters. I had to do hard surface things, and it's so funny because those are the classes I remember, because those are the ones that I was pushing myself so much out of my comfort zone, So even like, for example, last year or 2 years ago, I took a class with Rafael Souza, which was all classical sculpting, Greek sculptures and stuff. And I was uncomfortable the whole time, but now I know that uncomfortable equals learning, equals expanding, right? So I knew I was suffering because I was expanding, So sometimes like Max said, it's so important to take those classes that maybe, even like when I was at Gnomon as well, like taking painting classes and stuff, like it was so out of my comfort zone, but that made me expand so much, even expand my brain literally in some degree, the plasticity of the brain, because you letting connections of neurons happen that were not there before, So yeah, and in Overwatch, same thing what you said, Max. Like I got to there, and 90% of the time I was modeling in Maya, hard surface stuff, armor and things. And that was still today the place that I learned the most when I was doing, because it was so out of my comfort zone, So yeah.
Yeah.
Let me find
It's super huge. So there's a couple that I'm going to hit really quick here. So artistic frick, like there's not really any individual advice I can give you about how to get out of your country without a degree, but I can say that the biggest thing in your way is your portfolio. If you are amazing, people will figure out ways to get you where they want you to be, regardless of degrees, regardless of anything else. So if you're, and this is no dig on you, this is nothing that's negative towards you, so I don't want you to take this personally, but if your work is mediocre or average or whatever, like you have to continue to improve yourself to a point where you're as good as the pros that you're trying to work with. Because once you start putting out work that is, that people can't ignore, that's when you start being able to break down barriers that you don't have. But as far as like individual countries work differently, in the United States, yes, it's very, very important that people have degrees for their immigration stuff. But I know people without them, you can do, I forget what the type of visa is. And in no way, shape, or form should anything I'm saying about immigration be taken as advice, because I don't know that information. I'm not an expert on that. I'm an expert on CG and art and, whatever, maybe some motivational stuff. But it really depends on what you're doing. But there's a specific type of visa that is like it's like called like an exceptional individual visa, where you can well, there's O1, but then there's a sub tier of O1. My roommate had one, where you basically have to prove through tons and tons of work that you are capable of doing things that other people are not capable of doing things, no matter what. And for that, he had, recommendation letters from very high up people in Hollywood, like directors, and he'd worked on some films and other stuff. So you had to really pull a lot of cards and do a lot of effort into that process. But yeah, unfortunately, if you're trying, it's even like this for Americans. Like if you're really, really good or you're average and you want to go work in Europe and you're just average, they're not gonna support you. So, yeah. So unfortunately, the degree is kind of a double down passport. It's like it's an extra step into the passport that a lot of places like, at least Western countries specifically. So there you go.
Yep. I want to shout out to Renault. He was my supervisor on my time at Blizzard. He's here listening
awesome.
to it. And he said, I'm going to put it here. We saw the potential in Leticia and knew that she had the eye for stylization and that the technical aspects could be trained. Yes.
I take that hard because I trained her in the technical stuff. She just didn't listen.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I have a very bad memory.
Who are you people and how did I get here?
Cool. Let me see what else is going on here. Okay. Blah, blah, blah. All right, let me put this question in. I have gone through art college and I know modeling, sculpting, and drawing. These are my skills, but I don't have finance to go out of India.
I just answered that one.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
So sorry.
No, you're good.
But do you think, okay, here we go. Guys, do you think age could be a problem for joining studios?
No. I think maturity can, but I don't think age is. I think that you're like I said earlier, there's shitty people all over the world, and you may go up against a certain studio where if you're old, they assume you don't know what you're doing, or if you're really young, they're not certain that you're mature. But that is all stuff that you as an individual can work on, you know. And if you're, like I said, if your portfolio is there and you're not a weirdo, like you shouldn't have any problem getting work, especially right now. There's so much work in our industry right now. So if your work is good and you're not a weirdo, you're probably pretty good.
Yep. I like to say, like, keep your mind professional and your heart young. Young meaning open to learn from people when you join, depending of your age, because sometimes older people will join a studio and they'll be more close to learn things, where sometimes the opposite happens, right? So you see someone much older, but they have that young heart and they're just so open to learn and to collaborate. So keep your mind professional and your heart young, and that's what I've seen so far works pretty good for people.
Sure, it's good.
Let's see. Next one. What is your advice on preventing burnout once you get the new job, especially for artists eager to make an impression in the first few months? How do you find balance?
That's probably the hardest question that anybody's going to ask today, because it's very, very hard to regulate like passion and obsession and this desire to improve with your breaking point. I know people who are still going, like, you know, 10 years later, like they're maniacs and they're not burnt out and they just love it and they do it all the time. And, you know, I was definitely someone who was able to do that for quite some time until it hit me really hard, you know? And then all of a sudden I didn't know what to do with my life because you're so emotionally and physically invested in what you're doing that it's very, very hard to, like control your emotions and your positivity when all of a sudden you just can't work and it's all you've ever done. So I don't have a good way of telling you how to prevent burnout when you get a new job, but I will tell you a couple things. Like your career, like the skill and the career and the artistry and the storytelling and all the things that you're studying to make you capable of having that job. That's what's important. The job itself, like no job, no employer is your friend. Like they're your job. And so if you're putting in time to improve yourself and you're liking what you're doing and you're, you know, that's where you're putting your effort into, then there's no reason to look negatively on the hours that you spend or the effort that you're putting in. But if you're at a job like ruining yourself and your mental state and your physical state for an employer, just remember they wouldn't do that for you. Like no company is your friend. Like you can have great jobs to have great people around them, but at the end of the day, we are paid because we invest a lot of our time and effort into being very good, and those companies need people like us to be able to make amazing products to entertain people. Without us, those things don't get made, and so we have to value ourselves as much. A big problem that I've seen in the artist industry, which I think has gotten better over the years, was there used to be this mentality that like you were lucky to have a studio let you have a job. And it's like, it's not. It's a mutual thing. Like they're lucky to have you. You're lucky to have them. That's fine. But it's not a one-way street. So I think that when people deal with burnout, a lot of times they take into these approaches like, if I lose this job, I'm never going to work again in my life, or like I don't deserve this job. I have to prove that I should have it. And you should grow and improve and do your best at your job and support your team and stuff, but you should never sacrifice your mental health or physical health for a job. It's not worth it.
Yeah.
So
if I could add one thing on that,
yeah,
would be, for me at least, one thing that I find that it's very good for me to keep like the hours without having to stay longer hours on work is that when I'm at work, I'm at work. I'm not watching a TV show in the background. I'm not watching a podcast on the background. The most I'll be put a song or some soundtrack or something. Where I've noticed in my experience in the past, some people, they're like working, watching something. So your attention span is split, right? So of course your productivity is going to be lower, So for me, it's like this. Okay, I have to work, let's say 6 to 8 hours or something. So on those hours, I'm going to be focus on what I'm doing. And then after that, I literally do not think about work at all. I just go do my models, I go play with my dog, etc. And that's just my way that I found to keep it up with the hours, doing what I need to do, instead of kind of trying to entertain myself throughout the whole day while I'm modeling. And then I don't know, 6, 7 p.m. is out and I'm not done with my stuff yet.
Mhm.
So figure it out what works for you. Some people they like listen to music and things, but again, like when you're watching TV shows or podcasts, it might split too much of brain for you to be on your best self to work.
Mhm. Yeah, like time management is huge for that as well. Like if you're having to work 16 hours a day, you're probably not putting in like
Yeah.
good work time during the day, because you can get everything you need to get accomplished in 8 to 10 hours in a day. And if you're being productive and you're getting the right amount of sleep and you're staying on task. And I feel the same way. Like something that it was like actually like, and I know you're not the type of person who will say these types of things, but like it pissed me off like a lot when I was in the studio, when there were people with like their iPads on their desks watching Netflix and shit, and we were like had deadlines to get something done, and it's like there's no, and people be like, oh no, it's fine, it's just background noise to me. And it's like there's just no way that you're sitting there watching like anime episodes at your desk and focusing on your task that you're supposed to be accomplishing in any scenario where that is like conducive to efficiency and 100% attention on what you're doing. And I don't even listen to music with words in it when I work.
Yeah,
It's
same
all
thing.
it's like background noise is fine, like, but it's all like, smooth beats to study to type stuff, where it's just like rhythmic and low and non-chaotic. It's literally is background noise, and it's just me and what my tasks are.
Yeah, same
So
thing.
anybody,
And
go ahead.
I think I even tried it. Like I was like, all right, I'm gonna test it out. My attention span, watching something in the background noise, and then doing it. I could feel it because something happens here. I don't know, like the wife hits the guy, slap, you bastard, and then you get out of it. It's over,
Mhm.
and then you're not in that flow. You gotta allow yourself to get into that rhythm of focusing on what
Mhm.
you're doing. And just watching Netflix or anime or whatever it is, it's just not going to put you there. And at the end, they're paying you those hours to work, right? So again, like there's this thing about having to be entertained all day that is just not going to do you. And then people are like, Leticia, you're going home on time every day, and I'm here because I'm like, well, you should question your choices during work.
Mhm.
Because then I leave work and I'm relaxed, completely disconnected, because I know I did my 100% that day.
Yeah. And when I went freelance, that was the big thing that I had to come to grips with. In the studio, there's this overwhelming like idea that everybody's relying on me and that everybody's watching me and I have to do that. And so there's part of it's like a fear, right? Of like,
Yeah.
I need to show that I'm good enough. And so my work ethic was stellar because of, not because it's my work ethic was good, but also this sense of like everybody can see what I'm doing. Everybody is expecting me to deliver, da 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 da. And then I went freelance after a couple of years, and so was working for myself, right? So I would bid the job, and I would have the time on the job. And what I started realizing was like at the studio, what I would get done in 10 hours was taking me like 3 days to do at home. And I was like, why is this happening? And so what I did was I got like a tracking app on my computer where I could like actually log my activities. Like I was UVing for 45 minutes, and then it's like I went to the restroom, and I came back from the restroom, and I time clocked myself. And what I saw was, and I mean, it was very unsettling. But after a week of doing that, I pulled all the data, and I was like, I was working 18-hour days because 10 hours of my day was me fucking around.
Doing
You know, it was like,
nothing.
go get a cup of coffee, and you think it's 5 minutes in your head, but it's 25 minutes. I'm going to make another cup of coffee, or I'm going to heat this up. Okay, da 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 da. Oh, I'm going to go outside for a second, smoke a cigarette. Oh, I'm going to come back. Oh, my coffee's empty. I better get another cup of coffee. Oh, we're out of coffee. I need to make another pot of coffee. And then you look at the time, and you're like, dude, I just spent 27 minutes away from my desk in the middle of the day, which was supposed to be me walking to the kitchen, right? Or you call your parents, or you check some email, and it's like, so people don't realize that sitting at a desk with software open, moving your mouse around, right? Like that's not working. That's you not being in bed. It's you not playing video games, but it's not working if you're on Facebook, every 10 minutes. So I think it's being honest with yourself about like your time management and what you're really doing, because you can walk out of work at 5 and have accomplished everything that you needed to accomplish. So a lot of times when people, and I was guilty of this, a lot of times when people have to work till 8 or 10 o'clock at night, it's because they're spending 4 hours in the middle of the day not getting shit done.
Yeah. And we could say the same thing about studying, right? It's like if you not working yet, but you want to have a good, healthy study schedule, it's the same thing. Like how many times we're like, all right, I'm going to sit to study. Oh, wait a minute, I should get a cup of water. And then you go up, and then you're like, oh, let me just check my Facebook before. When I was a Gnomon, this is a true story. When I was a Gnomon, when I was ready to study, I will literally take my Ethernet cable out of my computer because I knew I could not access any Ethernet content. Nothing was open. Facebook, Instagram, or whatever it was never open. So I had to be 1 hour, 1 hour and a half completely dedicated to studying, which is same thing, right? Some people are studying and they put a tutorial, and then they put some Netflix thing going on, and then they have Instagram open, and then they're like, oh shit, someone posted some art. I'm gonna pause this. Or you're splitting your brain, my friend, and then you're not holding the capability that it's possible for you. Basically, you're sabotaging, right? You're shooting yourself on the foot. So
yeah, I did the same thing. Turn off my phone, throw it in my dresser, unplug my internet. It's the only way to stay like in it, because everything's a distraction.
Everything. And then you just need to study 1-2 hours, and you learn so much. And then some people, like, all the time you talk to them, they're like, I'm studying. And then you go to class, and that person did like a half-ass homework. I'm like, what's going on with this person? It's literally because they think they're studying, but they just have a million tabs open with a million things happening. And that's not just not gonna work.
Sure. Let's see if we got some other stuff going on here. People have been active in chat.
Okay, tell me which one do you want me to put on?
Well, someone says your artwork is beautiful from Russia.
Thank you.
Starting at 50, 55 is not too late. No. I've worked with people who are, but it's about what you're able to do. So like, let's be completely honest. You're 50 to 55 years old. You probably can't put in the kind of time physically. You can't put in the kind of time that a young person can. So you're immediately at a disadvantage. But where do you have an advantage? You're 50 years old. You have a lot of life skills. There's a lot of experiences to draw from. There's a lot of other stuff that the younger people have to make up for with long hours that you get to make up for in just life experience. So if you're dedicated towards it, you know what you want, you're getting the right materials, then it's never too late to do anything. Like, it's just like, start it now so that you're not doing it at 60. Start it now so you're not doing it at 70, but you're never too late. We have people that come through Gnomon who are 50, who go through the entire program. And I would be lying to you if I said that they did it without struggle. They struggle because they're older, and it's hard to sit at a desk for 50 hours a week. They have families, so they're distracted by stuff that they have to take care of. But it's not impossible. Everybody is going to have their own challenges. The thing is not letting your challenges define you. You know, when you start making excuses for shit, like what country you live in, or your sexual orientation, or how old you are, how young you are, or, you know, my mom never loved me, or whatever it is, those things suck. And they do have some definition on who we become. But like, if they are your excuses for why you're not successful, then you're just doing self-fulfilling prophecy shit. You're just saying, well, the reason why I can't be successful is because these things. And I don't agree with that. I've met people from incredibly successful, supportive families who are successful, and I've met people that came from nothing and are successful. And all of them have the same kind of thing where it's like their upbringing and what they've gone through don't define their limitations in the world. They may be the thing that motivates them and drives them to be a person different than the people that they were raised by or around. But it's never, ever, ever going to be, it should be an excuse for your success. So let's see.
I think there's one here. Let me read this one. A few companies ask for 4 to 5 years of experience and the work they require. I know I can do it. I have potential work, but don't have any experience. Can I have any chance of getting selected?
Yes. Put your work out there. I guarantee you 4 to 5 year thing goes right out the window if your work is better than what they expect. So the 4 to 5 year thing is, you have to understand that there's a million billion people in this world who learn Photoshop and 3 months later think that they can be a designer. So companies have to create these like unnecessarily kind of like strict job descriptions and barricades to prevent a lot of people who aren't ready for those jobs from just flooding them with garbage all day long. So a lot of times when you see these like requirements, like must have shipped 5 AAA titles, I guarantee you show some game environments that are as good as what they're doing, and that 3 AAA title thing disappears real fast. So don't consider any of those as being barricades. They're just speed bumps, right? They're not roadblocks. They're speed bumps. They're there to slow certain people down. But if you're comfortable in your work and you believe in your work, still submit. What's the worst thing they're going to say? You don't have the experience. Sorry. Best thing they're going to say, hey, we want to hire you. And back in the back of your mind, you're like, oh, wow, I guess that's bullshit. They didn't want 4 to 5. So, you know, I guess the thing is, it's always like, don't take no for an answer. Just focus on your own stuff. It's kind of like same advice, just keep cycling back and forth, like from earlier questions about how can I get a job? How can I get a job? How can I get a job? And it's like, make your work good, be a good person, help people around you, create some kind of community, you know, don't be an asshole, and put yourself out there. And if people don't like what you do, make more art and show that you're good. That's really how it works.
And sometimes it's funny, like when they ask, like, I don't know, 3 to 5 years of experience, and then you submit work with very little experience, they even excites them if the work is good, because it's like, if this person has, let's say, 1 year of experience with this portfolio, how much there's so much potential for that person to grow in the company. Sometimes compared to someone that has 5 years of experience, submit the portfolio and it's kind of equal level as you know. So in some degree, it can even be a good thing for you if your work is on the level they probably expect, you know.
Absolutely.
Let's see. All right, there's one here. Let's see. Is 3D skill required now for most illustration-centered jobs?
In entertainment, yes. I mean, unfortunately, like, you know, you can look at any of like the great concept artists in our industry right now at Marvel and Naughty Dog and wherever you want to look at, and all of these guys are world-class illustrators, concept artists, but they're all using some level of 3D. And it's not because concept art needs 3D, it's because clients want 3D. They've been given it, they've seen it, it's not new anymore. It's been going on for 10 years. And now, even if you are an amazing illustrator, there is a certain expectation that you're going to be able to deliver them an environment from multiple angles, that you're going to be able to deliver like a character turntable as opposed to just an illustration, so that they you know, can see it in its final context. And also because that can be passed off to production, and production can take that and like turn it into it. So you're circumventing a lot of extra time, because if you give me a shitty model and say turn it into a good model that's ready to go into animation, like if I have something to work off of, it's going to save weeks of me having to build everything from scratch if someone's already got like the basic proportions and stuff done. So so yeah, unfortunately I think it's good, but then the question goes, right, like what level of 3D do you need to know? it's like you don't have to be a 3D master. If you're a very good illustrator, if you're an art center quality illustrator, if you're a concept artist, and you put out comparable work to what the industry is putting out, then the level of 3D that you know should be looking into is, you know, simple rendering apps, things that allow you to like kind of play like a sandbox where you can just throw stuff into place, move some lighting around, you know, and then if you need to paint over or do projections over the top, like so be it. But there's a lot of cheaty, really dirty ways to use 3D in like non-production ways, where it's about just creating a beautiful image, or a beautiful character or creature. So I think that yes, like 3D is just a tool. It's like it's a paintbrush, pencils, paintbrushes, 3D. They're all the same thing. Like they don't make art, we do. So you should never be scared of those tools. Like it shouldn't be like I'm an illustrator and I don't want to use that. And it's like, well, I like drawing in marker on paper, but nobody ever wanted to pay me for it. Right. So I learned other tools, high demand tools that people wanted. So you could be an amazing illustrator, but if you're not doing what the job requires, then you're not going to obviously have the same level of career success. It doesn't mean you won't be an amazing artist. Obviously, that's a completely different thing. But
yeah, you might be hard to compete with other amazing artists that are also implementing some 3D to their work. Like when I was at Netflix, like 50% of the story team there were using SketchUp to block perspective stuff, you know? So they would just literally just like extrude some blocks and like, okay, here's going to be this building, he's going to be this building. And then they will set the camera just right, take a screenshot and draw on top of it. That's it. You know, so that was like something that for them, they will have to be measuring perspective and stuff. And now the only focus about the fun part, which is telling the story, right? So
well, it's like, you know, Aaron Lamonic over at like Naughty Dog, right? The guy is an amazing illustrator, traditional, digital, whatever. Like his work is so good. But like I know that I believe he's using Moto or was using Moto for a while. And it's like, you know, you look at a guy like that paints that well, that fast, and has like just such an amazing eye. And then you're like, well, why is he like using 3D software? And it's like, it's purely speed. It's purely a situation where like, yes, I can do it, but I know I can make like 20 cylinders. There's a castle, move it over there, make a mountain, throw some moonlighting on this scene by clicking a couple buttons, hitting render. And now I'm in Photoshop painting, you know, 25 minutes or an hour in, instead of still plotting perspective in Photoshop, you know, 2 days later, trying to figure out like, oh, okay, da, 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 da. And if he doesn't like something, he'd turn the camera, change the focal length. So I don't look at them as like pipelines. Look at them as tools and build the pipeline you want from the tools that are available. And if you don't like a tool, don't use it.
Dofra, I'm just gonna put a comment here. I thought it was funny. Archer said, guys, I'm just doing all of those bad habits. Hey man, there's always a time to wake up, you know what I mean?
Yep, that's why these conversations are good. It's kind of like I was saying earlier, there's like when Leticia asked about, you know, people being like informed and, you know, like because of the internet and all the social media stuff. And I said, not really, right? Because there's a lot of people that just don't partake in these situations. They don't hear, you know, advice or guidance or partake in conversations where they can get this kind of information. So just being here and like asking the questions is huge, because hopefully our answers help. And if they don't, well, you know what?
It's something to think about.
No refunds.
No refunds.
There's no refunds on this stream. It's completely free and you don't get your money back.
MTT, my husband, aka my husband, said, love hearing from Max.
How does this work?
Max,
I don't know.
How did this the new
I've never had
like
to do
this,
it before.
Max. You gotta do like this. Max was also a teacher from my husband. We met in school, so there you go.
Hello, Chris. Am I not supposed to say his name?
You can say it. It's okay.
Hello, not Chris.
Not Chris. Artist Frick said, any advice on what are the ways to be independent and becoming financially free in this field?
Thank you, Alex. I appreciate that. We'll make it my website. And hello.
Let's do it, Max.
Hello.
A little bit like this.
Like this?
Gotta do two hands like this.
I don't have 2 hands. There you go. Okay. So hello to all of the former students in the chat. It's awesome to see you guys there.
That's right. Say anyone from them and say a hi here so we can feel the love.
So where were we? We're going to say
talking about
things?
financial freedom in this field.
Oh, the financial freedom. Ways to be independent and become financially free in this field. Let's see. If you want the short answer, there are a million Unreal jobs right now. Becoming good and technical at Unreal is a great way to have a job in this industry. So that's just the easy answer. The more Unreal you know right now, the better. I mean, Houdini is obviously that way too, but this is more of an art stream, and I'm sure there's not a lot of super technical people that are like wanting to go learn Houdini that are there, but Houdini is another skill that you can't really go wrong with. But yeah, the other answer, I guess, is just doing the work, right? Like, it's like enjoying what you do, learning and growing. It's kind of like what we've been talking about this whole stream, is how you become financially free in this field, is you develop a skill set and an expertise in what you love, and you become an expert. And when you become an expert at stuff, you have a lot more financial freedom and career flexibility because you're an expert. If you're very, very good, every studio wants you. And so it goes back to that statement I made probably about an hour ago now, where it's like, there's a lot of mediocre artists out there that are okay being mediocre, but not okay being where they are in their career. And so you have to grow, you have to love it, you have to continue to consume knowledge, grow your community, put yourself out there. It's never a bad idea. Like, there's a lot of cool art contests and stuff out there as well. Like, if you're a single, freelance person with not a lot of experience and you want to like kind of get some notoriety, like enter into the Blizzard art contest, enter into all this stuff, like put yourself out there, start to show that you are at the top of that pile.
Yeah. So, and if you like have a portfolio, just go get your first job. I have so many people, they're like, I'm working on my portfolio, and never go get a job. You have to get those first jobs out of your system. Okay. They're gonna give you that experience you need on your resume. And they're also gonna give you life skills, because work is not just about making portfolio, right? It's about becoming more professional person, knowing how to receive critiques, how to communicate. So a lot of people I notice, they just want to study, but they don't want to have the first experience so you can make mistakes, right? And then when you make those mistakes, and then for my example, right, I start making those mistakes back home in Brazil when I was working very young. When I got here to the US, start studying in Gnomon, I already had those skills. I just needed to keep polishing. So I was able to present myself much better as a professional. Where some people, they keep studying and never starting their first job. And then when they do it, they make a lot of mistakes that they don't want to do maybe on that specific job, So you got to take those first jobs out of your system so you can grow as a person and as an artist,
Sure. Hopefully we answered your question.
Yeah, and hopefully the job will pay for you to have, some lifestyle, and or you can do 2 jobs. Sometimes, I take freelance when I need some extra cash to do something, it's up to you.
When you get a new toy shelf and
when
it's
you
empty.
Need to buy some expensive stuff.
Nice.
All right. Some people said, I needed this talk so much. Thanks for having a topic for me to clean my mind. It's a therapy week. I'll put it here.
We're happy.
That's true. Someone said here, Max, it's a veteran. That's right. Yes, he knows what's up. You know what I mean? Just read some thank yous here. Thank you, Leticia, for bringing Max. You both are super inspiring, feeling inspired, and as I was back to Gnomon. Yes.
Yep. And it's good seeing you, Alina. And your dog.
Oh yeah, Lena, how's it going? I don't even read. I don't know how to do this very properly.
You know, I don't even know how to read. I make pictures.
Chris said, Alex, we need to keep that archived, the hearts. Daria said, thank you so much for such graduates like Leticia who make her life more beautiful, interesting. Yay, yay, yay. Thank you, Daria. All right, we have a question here. Let's see.
All right.
Armando said, has the age-old question been asked for generalist versus specialist? In today's age of remote work, which one wins?
So I think I think that they're the kind of the same thing. I think that people take the words too literally because every generalist is a specialist of something. Like nobody is a generalist out of school and then becomes a generalist forever, right? Like you find something you love and you learn a shitload about it, and then you spider off and you learn new skills, and eventually you're good at a couple of things and you become a generalist. But I think that in my personal opinion, it's generalists, like because we don't live in a world anymore. And I'll even say this, like, Leticia, what's your title at work?
I'm a 3D character artist. Yes.
Okay. Do you work with hair?
I do model hair, yes.
Yeah. Like, do you work with textures?
I do some painting, yes.
Yeah. Do you light and you render your scenes?
Correct.
Yeah. So she is a generalist, like under the given guise of that, but that's not what she is. She's a specialist. She is specifically a 3D character person. And so I think what a lot of people from the outside or that are new in their career or that students think is that being a modeler is just about knowing the 17 buttons in the modeling tab, and that's what makes you a modeler. But modelers know the rigging tool set and lighting tools and all this other stuff as well. So we are 3D artists at the end of the day. Like all of us are, whether you're a tech artist or you're somebody really high on the story side, or you're someone in the middle that would be considered more of a generalist, someone modeling, texturing, blah, 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 blah. Everybody is doing the same stuff. So the idea of specializing it's not real if you're a 3D artist. It is if you're a dude who knows where the modeling buttons are. But if you're a modeler and you're not working in 5 different pieces of software, you're probably not really that important of a modeler in the circle that you're in. And I remember it reminds me of like Zbrush Summit. I think it was like 2018 or something. Oh, what's his name? It's so I'm so stupid. Another Brazilian, the art director at Sony. It's at Sony.
Raphael
was giving his talk, and he was like sculpting like this demon thing. And at the end, like the first question in the talk was like, "Oh, Raphael, is this what it's like working at Sony?" And he just started laughing. Right? He's like, no, not at all.
No,
like,
friend.
Like ZBrush is like 15 or 20% of my day, maybe if I'm lucky. The rest of the time I'm in 3D Studio Max doing this, and I'm in Maya doing that, and I'm in da 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 da. And I remember watching that, and it's just like, you see these demo artists and you see people come out and like, the stuff that you're doing right now, which you're definitely pouring your professional skills into, but it's not the same thing as working in a studio. Right. Nope. And so, so I think that that's something that a lot of people just don't really consider. And you go out there and people are like, well, just learn ZBrush and you'll be fine. But the people giving that kind of advice are always other students, right? Or people that are like they're on their first internship after 5 years of trying to be a 3D artist. But realistically, learn as much as you can. So Armando, you weren't here for this earlier, so I will say it again, right? It's about consuming as much knowledge and experience as you possibly can, and then letting time dictate what you really needed to know. Don't try to predict the future. And when you say I'm going to be a specialist or a generalist, what you're doing is you're trying to narrow down how much knowledge you really need to do to be successful. And I come from a place where I think the more knowledge you have, the more successful you'll become. Like that's the formula. Like open up a big net, catch as much knowledge as you can, read books, watch TV, have conversations with amazing people that know things that you don't know, open your mind and just grow, and you will be successful. And then if you want to do one thing because you find it the most fun, then do that one thing because you find it the most fun. And if you're great at it, people will pay you. And if you like to do lots of stuff, then do lots of stuff.
Yeah. Like for me, for example, I'm a modeler at Disney, but I love doing lighting. So I start presenting my models with the better light. And that already made me seen in a different way in the studio. It's like, wait, what is she doing? We need to keep going with that, So other skills are especially I feel like in this time, it's much welcome, because what you're doing when you do a little bit of paint, a little bit of lighting, is that you're bridging the gaps of departments, right? Because at the end, they want us to feel like one thing, right? When you blur those lines between departments, you're giving a peek to the future to the director, which sometimes the director is someone that does not understand anything about 3D, anything about what we're doing. So if they can get a better peek of the future, it's going to be this, but much better. It's going to help them visualize ahead of time, So that's very powerful for directors, art directors, producers, etc.
Yeah, what she said.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. We got here. That was great reply from both of you. Now I have got so much clarity. Thank you for the wonderful streams and keep doing good work for beginners like us. You are much welcome. Atia is here from Gnomon. And Armando said, thank you so much. All right. Let me put this question here. Outside of, Ian said, outside of the foundation in art and design course, is Gnomon well suited for someone who wants to learn concept art?
It depends on what your idea of concept art is, right? Because a lot of people who, and again, no insults intended here, so I'm just going to speak truthfully. A lot of people, when they first get into art in general and they hear about concept art as a career, they start getting like super into this idea that concept art is about just doing whatever you want and then people pay you for it, right? You come in and someone says, make a spaceship, and you're like, here's a spaceship, and they're like, you're the best, here's some money. And that's not the reality of concept art. And so, like we were saying earlier with concept art, is that it's very much a 3D world nowadays. And so if you become someone who is really like strong with the tool sets, you can model, you can texture, you can light, you can render, you can, do some 2D like painting, whatever it might be, then you can be massively successful out of Gnomon as a concept artist. And we have a lot of grads that are that way. Jared Kraszewski is a great example. We have students who didn't even go through our program, who just took some classes and became very, competent concept artists like Kyle Brown. And so there's a lot of people that do concept coming from Gnomon, but Gnomon is a production art school. We teach it all. So we teach the storytelling, we teach the fundamental skills, we teach the technical skills, and what you do with those skills is irrelevant, because you have a student who takes a modeling class and they become a TD, and they use all that skill that they learned in that modeling class to be a TD at a studio in games. And then you have another person in that same class who ends up a stylized character artist at Disney. And then you have another person who takes that information and they're a visual effects artist somewhere else. And so it's about like having this like deep knowledge of all of these different skill sets. And the more you understand, then the more flexibility and control you have over the way you create concept art. But I would be hard pressed to tell anybody nowadays that pure illustration is a way to, like, a good way into concept art. Like, those skills are massively important. But if I was pursuing a career in concept art, I would want to have as much 3D in that as I possibly could get. And again, that doesn't mean that you need to be super technical. I want to keep reiterating that. Like, sometimes when people say 3D, what you hear on the other side is, oh, I need to learn all of these different softwares and how to do it the right way. It's like, no, you don't necessarily need to learn all the softwares and how to do it the right way, but you do need to learn enough about them that you can leverage those techniques and those skills to be able to augment your workflow. So if someone says, I want you to create a character, and they want a turntable, you have to be able to deliver that. So you're going to need to know a tiny bit of animation and a tiny bit of compositing and a tiny bit of lighting and rendering. And to be honest with you guys, this stuff isn't that hard anymore. Like, it really isn't that hard. Like, there's so much information out there. The tools, a lot of them are set up just to look good out of the box. I mean, like back in the mental rate days, for anybody who's a million years old in here who had to learn that, like, you had to have like a degree in computer science and someone to show you where to put all the code in to make like a single frame out of mental ray to look good. You download V-Ray or Arnold and you press go and it looks good. You open Unreal and it looks good. And so, like, there's so many opportunities. So it's not really about like 3D or 2D or whatever. But yes, my answer is, if you wanted to go to Gnomon to be a concept artist, you absolutely could. But it sounds like, based on your question, that you think concept art is drawing. And I don't think that that's the industry we live in anymore, where concept art is just drawing. I think it's a part of it, but it's not the biggest part anymore. So I would say just based on that, it's about kind of knowing what concept art really is and what kind of skills you're really bringing to the table. And then pick the right school for you there. Like if you want to be more illustrative, then there are better schools to go to than Gnomon, because we are not a full 3-year or 4-year illustration school. But if you want to know how to do it in a million different pieces of software, then you are going to be, Gnomon is going to be a great place for you. If you want to learn all the different techniques and tools and systems and ways of thinking about things and becoming a storyteller and understanding how this stuff is done, then yes, Gnomon is, in my opinion, and don't take my word for it because I've worked there, is the best place in the world you're going to be able to do that kind of stuff from.
Yep. And just one thing, like there is this amazing concept artist at Disney called Ryan Lane, and I just saw him posting some like robots. So again, like what Max said, he studied ZBrush enough just to kind of do some hard surface and paint on top. So if you look at the model, it's very kind of like mushy and stuff, but then he's painting and he's just like amazing, you know? So again, like the 3D, like Max said, you don't need to learn everything the way we do for modeling, like production modeling, but what is needed for you to push your art forward, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right, let's see what's going on here. All right, we have, how do you stay in neutral state? Like, how do you maintain balance between procrastination and being realistic?
I'm realistically procrastinating all the time, and that's how I maintain my balance. I don't know. I mean, like, this question's like so zen that I feel like I need to like cross my legs and meditate a little bit for your answer. But I don't know. It just becomes self-reflection, right? Like we talked about earlier about, time management and positive thinking.
Yeah.
And I think that those are all the things. Like procrastination. I saw a really amazing talk by an author, Neil Gaiman, like years ago. That was about creativity and specifically writer's block or artist block, because it was an artist's talk instead of a writing talk. And he said something pretty prolific there. And he's like, I don't believe in writer's block or artist block because like it's really just distraction, like procrastination and that kind of stuff. And it's like, if you put yourself in a situation where there are no distractions, the work that you're supposed to be doing seems a lot more fun. But what happens is kind of like what Leticia was saying earlier, is like you're splitting your time and you're distracted by everything around you. So you say these things because they're excuses, like, oh, I didn't have time, or I had other stuff to do, or I was really busy, or da 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 da. But in reality, you're probably not. And so if you're procrastinating a lot, or you're having a hard time getting your work done, I think a lot of it is about removing distraction. And just being like, okay, you know what I'm going to do is like, I'm going to sit here at my desk with my internet unplugged, and I will stare into nothingness. I will stare into the void until doing the work sounds like way better than staring into this cobweb.
Yeah.
And
so
I'm
gonna hit the uncomfortable button as well, because sometimes what happens with procrastinating is that people don't want to put themselves in the uncomfortable place of learning, of having to put yourself to the test. So I think a lot of it comes from anxiety, like anxiety towards not wanting to feel uncomfortable, right? So one thing I like to say is like, if you know you should be studying, but you feel like you can't do it, take 5 minutes, sit with yourself on the desk, pick a piece of paper, and write it down what you're feeling right now. And for sure, you're going to write down, I'm anxious, I feel kind of foggy in my brain, I don't know where to focus. A lot of it comes from anxiety, like what to study. Am I going to fail? Am I going to succeed? And all of it connects to the fact that you are uncomfortable with the idea of growth. You don't want to feel that uncomfortable feeling. And again, it's like inertia. The more you put yourself to uncomfortable space, the more you're going to deal with it better, So you got there's never a moment where you're like, oh, I'm going to model when I feel like it. You're going to wait many days, friend. It's not going to happen. You have to put yourself and say like, okay, I'm going to model for an hour and see how I feel or something, And then by by default, how the universe works is that the inertia is you're gonna get out of the procrastination inertia, and you're gonna start being comfortable with the uncomfortable, basically. Anything else, Max, you want to add to
Yes,
that?
we need to have a graphic made so that when you need to do the uncomfortable alert, like lights come out and like maybe like a creepy dude in a trench coat walks out from the side of your screen. Like,
Yes.
yeah, there definitely needs to be an animated experience when you go into the uncomfortable alert.
Yeah, and again, one thing that is so powerful is always to connect the feeling of uncomfortable with growth. You know what I mean? It's like a lot of people like, oh, I don't feel comfortable. I'm not feeling blah, blah, blah. No, when you're feeling that, that literally means that you're trying to grow. You're trying to expand from your box.
Mhm.
So remember that. If you're feeling like, oh my God, my drawing's just not coming out, remember you're exercising that feeling of growth, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, where
Yeah, so I think Chris answered it, but yeah, all of this goes on to Gnomon's YouTube channel. I think it takes about a day or so, maybe less. I'm not sure how it works, but it'll all be recorded, and you can go back and you can watch all of Leticia's awesome archetype stuff as well. I think there's like 7 episodes now. This is the 8th, and they're super rad. So check them out if you haven't already. It's
That's
ruined my
right.
Sundays because now I sit down for 2 hours and watch you sculpt instead of all the crying that I'm supposed to be doing on Sundays.
Hey man, we gotta do what we gotta do, you know. Someone said, "What about making 3D models after your own concept?"
What about it? You're an
What
artist. You
about?
get to do whatever you want.
Yeah, I would say like if you want to go to a production company, like let's say DreamWorks or whatever it is, there is a pipeline, right? They're gonna have someone doing concept and someone doing the modeling. So a lot of times they want to see someone else's concept so they can see that you can take, like what Max said earlier, you make it equal or better, right? When you do your own concept, it's very powerful too. It's good to put in portfolio, but be careful not to put all your portfolio just your own concept, because then it leaves a space to like, okay, this person knows their own style very well. What about following guidelines from other people? You know,
Mm-hmm.
so my suggestion is it's always good to show that you can also concept and you have that language, but at the same time you got to be realistic about what kind of job they expect you to do, which normally is to get someone else's concept and translate. There are other jobs that's not the case. They hire a biz dev modeler to concept and model. So maybe that portfolio can be a bit different. You can put more of your own art, but you gotta see where you're going, where you're shooting for. You know,
Yeah,
what do you think, Max?
I think you hit the nail on the head. I would even say, one thing to consider too is like how good of a concept artist you already are, right? It's very hard to judge your own stuff when it's your stuff from front to back. Like if you have a great community of people who can put their eyes on stuff and provide you really good insight into what you're creating, then that's great. But a lot of times when you're just creating your own thing, you're so invested in it, you're so connected to it that you can sometimes be hard to make the right decisions. And then so the concept might not actually be as good or well worked out as you think it is, especially if you're younger in your journey. Um, and so doing your own concept, if you're very good at storytelling and you're very good at character development and you're very good at clothing design and you're very good at all of these things, then it can be fine. But a lot of what I see in younger artists in regards to doing their own concept, many times it is almost like a scapegoat for like, I do what I want. I don't really give a shit what your opinion is. I made these decisions. It's mine. And you can't do that when you're taking and realizing a character that already exists in another IP that's recognizable or needs to fit in a very specific world. You're either designing something that works or you're not. But when you do your own stuff, you can say whatever you want. Be like, well, I didn't, like Sid Mead would like always draw people with their backs to the cameras or wearing helmets because he didn't like want to spend the time doing faces. And it's like that's his own stuff. But if someone hired Sid Mead and said, no, I want people sitting around a table talking and conversing, then he had to sit down and paint the faces, right? So it's a very big difference between the skills somebody's maybe looking for in a studio when they're hiring you versus what you do on your own artwork when it's just your own. So I think it's good to have both. I think having design skills is very, very important because every decision you make on a model is going to have some design in it, whether it's your concept from the ground up or not. Like if Leticia gets a concept from somebody on her team and they say, okay, now make this into a 3D model, there's tons of her experience in art that goes into that piece. So it's not like you're just a copycat when you're a modeler versus a concept artist, because you're using the same skill sets. But if you're just doing your own thing from the ground up, it can create bad habits. It can also, you could become defensive about your design decisions. And maybe they're not as appealing as you think that they are to everybody else. And unfortunately, in the world of, in a perfect world, you would be able to create whatever you want and everybody would like it. But we work in commercial art where our job is to make 10 million people happy. So if we don't do our job right and people don't like what we create, then we're not doing our job, no matter how much fun we're having. So, and then I would say there's another like kind of segue into that point that you made that's a little bit different. That's even like for art tests. Like a lot of times with art tests, like, you know, people go in and they've spent all this time learning the skills that they need to be successful. And that's how they got the art test in the beginning to start with, right? Is that they had a great portfolio and the company's like, hey, we want you to take this art test and show us if what you can do. And they don't realize that the art test is like, there's a lot of like little hidden agendas in those art tests that aren't necessarily about how good you can model and texture. You know, they're about like how good you communicate, how well you ask questions, how well, like, you know, like they give you something that's not complete. And then a lot of people sit down and just do what's there. And then they turn it in and go, I did a great job. And they're just like, okay, thanks for your time. And they move on. And you're like, I did a great job. Why did I not get the job? And they did do a good job. But it's like, but they didn't, they saw these like empty spaces and they didn't bother to like email the modeling, you know, supervisor who gave them the art test and go, hey, so here's where I am on my art test. Like, do you have any guidance for me right now? Like, I see over here in this area, like we're not really seeing a lot of, would you like me to just come up with my own ideas? Or do you have something in particular you'd like me to do there? And they don't understand that's the art test. That is the art test. The art test is, does this person understand they're working in a team? Does this person understand that it's not about them? Does this person feel comfortable asking for help when they don't know the answer? And people, they don't get it. So they think that what you're doing is like you're training in the gym, and then you show up the first day and you're just like, all right, now is my time. I got to show everybody how strong I am. And I got to be independent. And it's like, no, we already see we saw you working out. We know you're strong. Like, do you know when to ask for help? Do you know when to get a spotter over there? Do you know when to ask your trainer what you're doing? You know? And so I think that that's a big mistake. And it's kind of the same thing you're talking about with the concept art. Versus the other thing is like knowing that they're two different things, and that one of those systems is about communication and about like fulfilling a requirement inside of production, and the other one's just, you know, having fun and making your own stuff. Hopefully that made sense.
Yeah, they're also like, you know, in this age where, you know, you can be a streamer, right? So we see some people where they have a very specific style that they like to draw, and they just stream and make money through that, you know. So they do exactly what they like to do and they do it. The chances are very small, but they exist, right? So you just got to choose where you want to go again, and like set those goals and do your best to get there, right? I truly believe that if you put the time, you can do, at some point you practice so much that you're gonna find a way to express the way you want it. You just have to have that discipline and focus on it, you know.
Sure, certainly.
All right, Hannibal said, let me show it here. I have a question for you. How well is Gnomon instructors trained to know the difference between people who are not applying themselves versus those who suffer from ADHD and struggling versus making excuses for why they can perform to their best?
Well, at the end of the day, you can't know that information. Gnomon has a standard that we hold every student to, regardless of their issues, right? Some issues may be self-inflicted and some may be out of their control. But I've worked with some people over the years that had varying levels of learning disabilities, from like massively chronic, you know, issues to, you know, mild, and everybody is capable of succeeding through that. And so Gnomon has you know, a lot of amazing support people at our school to help with you know, emotional or structure issues, and then we have a lot of great people to help with education issues. as well. But at the end of the day, like, no, what it's what's called reasonable accommodation, and that is that we will reasonably accommodate all people in their issues and try to help them be successful. But there's a point where stuff becomes unreasonable, and if you legitimately suffer from a scenario where you cannot do work, or you cannot communicate, or you cannot be present, then Gnomon is not the biggest problem in your life, and that you should be seeking professional help to get to a position where you can be successful in your life. So we will help work with stuff, but we are not psychologists. We are, artists and storytellers, and we have to make sure that everybody in our classrooms are given everything that they need. And so if there ever does become a problem where a person is unable to succeed beyond the scope of what the teacher in the education department is able to do, then we would need to, work with people that are well beyond our skill set in those areas. And so unfortunately, occasionally there are students who need more help in those areas than we can provide them. But at the end of the day, we are a school. We have expectations, we have standards, we have rules, and you can't really expect the school beyond a certain level of support to be able to support you if you cannot support yourself. And that's the unfortunate reality of the world, is some people unfortunately cannot do that. And then the people who just use excuses, like, they either snap out of it or they go away, right? So an excuse isn't a get out of jail free card, right? Like, you don't get to show up and not do work and not deliver day after day after day after day, and people are just gonna go, oh, I feel bad for them. Like, yes, we'll feel bad for you, but we have to set a standard. Not only do we have to set a standard because we're an accredited college and we have to, but it's our reputation, and it's not fair for the students who are working hard and dedicated if students are taking up time and creating like unfair distributions of support inside of the classrooms because other students don't want to do the work, or are procrastinating, or are creating scenarios that are detracting from the other students' ability to succeed. So we take it very seriously. We do try to support people, but at the end of the day, if you are someone suffering from, learning disabilities or behavioral disorders or whatever, you really should be getting the help from professionals before you put yourself in an intentionally stressful situation. It's your scenario or whatever you're dealing with is not going to get better when you put yourself in a stressful situation. So try to find the support and both the emotional and mental support from professionals to help you get to a place, hopefully, where you can succeed, and then put yourself into those situations. But don't go into a situation knowing you have those problems and then hoping just that it'll be okay, because Gnomon is not a goofy place. It's fun, it's inspirational, but it is a lot of work.
Yeah, and also, even my experience being a Gnomon, I saw a lot of people that just didn't have the maturity to be in a program, right? They had nothing beyond that. It's just like, sometimes you gotta understand the investment you're making. It's a very intense school, but you're investing a lot, and you're gonna get a ton back to you if you put the time. No one can open your brain and put a chip yet with a ton of information, right? So it doesn't matter if Max is gonna teach you all the things in the world about 3D. If you're not putting the time to take your notes, to exercise at home, it's not gonna happen for you, my friend. There's no matter of things that we can teach that it's gonna get inside your brain if you do not put the time and effort.
Yeah.
And some people, they don't have the maturity to understand that, right?
Yeah. So one of the things that I always say is, like, to my students, is like, you can lie to me all you want, because at the end of the day, I already know this information. And at the end of the day, I go home and I get to sit in my house and play video games with my friends and, cook dinner and whatever else. But if you're lying to yourself, there's no help. There's, like, you're screwed. Because if you think you're working hard, or you think that the world is out to get you, or you're making excuses for your own success, if you're lying to yourself and you believe that shit, like, there's no saving that scenario. So lie to everybody else you want. Come in and tell your teachers, like, sorry, my gerbil ate my thumb drive, or whatever bullshit you need to say to, like, try to get out of you not having your homework. But if you really believe that all those things that, are distracting you or whatever, you really think you're working hard, you really think you're giving it your all, you really think you're dedicated to yourself, but you're not, that's really super detrimental.
Yeah.
So don't lie to yourself. Lie to other people all you want.
Yes,
it doesn't
don't
matter.
lie to yourself. And one thing I would like to add to this question before we move on is that, independent if you have ADHD, if you have any conditions, anxiety, whatever, when you're studying, any stage of your life, if you have the chance, the capability to do therapy, do it. Because that is gonna, again, like what Max just said about not lying to yourself, sometimes we are not capable to see yet that we're lying to ourselves. But when you do therapy, that is brought to light. You know, you're being challenged by your therapist in many different ways to see where you lie into yourself, not just about procrastinating or your work or everything, any area of your life. So I do therapy for more than 8 years now. And I was lying in so many degrees to myself with so many things, you know. And again, like I didn't have the capability to see things by myself until I was being challenged in therapy to visualize things in different angles. So that is always helpful, especially if you go through an intense program like Gnomon. I wish when I was at Gnomon, I was already doing therapy because I think it would be very helpful for me too. Just an idea.
Yeah. I mean, and I think that when it all boils down to it, right? Like if you're not healthy, right? Like if you're not mentally healthy, physically healthy, like, you know, like Attila said, like, you know, your health is everything, right? And so what a lot of people do is that they don't do that. They don't actually create those scenarios where they're they're supported and they're in the right place. They think that just like moving forward is going to fix everything, and then they fall for the same problems that they already had going into it. So, um, but yeah, I mean, you can't tell when people are making excuses, and obviously you want to support everybody the same, right? And you don't want to like assume the worst of all people. But whether your excuses are real or they're not real, there is a point where everybody has to draw a line in the sand and go, like, I can't help you. You need professional help, or you
Yeah.
need to handle it yourself, right? Like if you're lying and you're the person, like you know, you made the statement, like, how do you know when someone's really struggling and when they're just lying? We don't. So we treat them both the same. If you're struggling and we can't help you with our systems and we have tons of them in place, then you need to go somewhere else. And whether that is go somewhere else and take a break from education until you're serious about it because you're immature, or it's go somewhere else where a mental health professional can help find your, you know, a way to help you be a better, you know, deal with your issues better. It doesn't matter because it's the same outcome, is go get help from people who can help you and then come back and we'll help you with what we're good at.
Yeah. And it's funny because like some people are like, oh, I don't want to lose time. But if you think about it, like me, for example, I did the 2-year program in Oman. And going to college before, you know, having worked before, it prepared me to that moment where I was laser focused, you know, where sometimes some of the people in my class didn't have their experience yet, didn't have that focus, you know. So sometimes if you take, let's say you go to Noman and you notice that you need some help, you take 6 months, work on yourself, start doing some therapy, take some classes instead of a whole program, then you come back much stronger. And
Mm-hmm.
then you're gonna really make out of those 2, 3, or 4 years that you're gonna be known. And you only had to spend 6 months taking time for yourself instead of like, oh, I just can't do this, so I'm gonna stick to it. And then you kind of like half-assing the whole time, and you just wasted that time, you know. So
Mm-hmm.
there's no shame in like stopping to reassess your life before you can come back and really be on that shape that you want to be in the program, you know.
Yeah. So I don't know what express courses mean. So Jace, if you want to follow up, I'll happy to answer that in a minute. But that terminology doesn't relate to anything that I know. So if you can give me a better example of what you're asking, I'm happy to answer the question. And
We
then
can say that Nomo has online classes, right?
yeah,
If
we have online classes. Most all of our classes are like 10 weeks minus the stuff that we do on our Twitch channel and like our streaming stuff. So we do like little like, you know, events about all sorts of stuff. They just did a arcane event last week, you know, the archetype stuff on the weekends here. Creature Corner, I believe, is on Tuesday night or Wednesday night, I forget. Um and then there's all sorts of special events at Gnomon all the time, which are like basically like little short express courses, if you would. But like our courses themselves, like Gnomon's curriculum is 10 weeks long. So they're 30-hour courses. They're 3 hours a week for 10 weeks, whether they're online or on campus. So, but we don't do anything like, you know, it's 10 hours a day for 2 days, if that's what you mean.
yep, we're right about time.
Oh my God, it's so fast.
I know. There's been 2 hours, Max.
That's nuts.
I'm not gonna read any other questions. I'm sorry. There's 2 questions, but I want to give the time for Max to say any final words he wants. Considering everything we talked about today, Max, is there anything you would like to say or do a closure or something?
No, I mean, I think the biggest thing is that, like, one, thank you guys for hanging out with us. It was super fun to spend this time with you. So thanks for having me on. For everybody else out there, if you guys have questions, right? Obviously, like, Gnomon has 1,000 different channels, and you can email us and they'll put you in contact with someone. So if you didn't get your question answered, or there's something that's like just burning at your soul, hit us up and we're happy to help, support or answer or direct you in the right ways. And what else is there? Yeah, be kind to each other, stay happy, keep being motivated. Like, don't be afraid to fail.
Don't be afraid to disconnect that cable and actually study.
Yeah, exactly. Like, be honest with yourself. Don't listen to music with words in it or watch Netflix while you're actually trying to learn things. Keep an open mind to all the different stuff out there. There's too many young artists, too many people out there who latch onto one idea and then, like, they beat it to death. And it's like, stay open-minded and just consume as much knowledge as you can. Like, don't be scared of new things. It can only help you. So yeah, and that's basically it, because I could talk for 1,000 hours, and I know that you have to go put together another toy shelf. So I don't want to hold you back from that. But
man,
no,
you can keep talking.
No, it's good. It's good. I have to pay you extra if I do that.
Well, no.
Yeah, OT.
Yeah, thank you, Max. And like, again, like, just so everyone knows, like, I invited Max as my first person here because, there's always those few people in our life that takes a huge impact on us. And Max definitely is one of those people in my life. And I learn and still do so much from him. So just having this time to chat with you for 2 hours been amazing. And you're always welcome. If anytime you want to talk more,
anytime I want to take a shit on TV, I can come here.
You can come.
No, I really do appreciate that. Yeah, it was awesome being here. Thank you for inviting me. It's very special. It made me very happy to get the offer to come, and so thank you.
All right, everyone.
And it's great seeing all you guys in chat and all the people that I don't know. Hello, nice to meet you.
That's right. All right, everyone's saying thank you, Max, for the information. You guys are amazing. Thanks, everyone. That's a wrap for today. And if you guys have any extra questions, feel free to send on the next stream, and then I can direct to Max. No, I'm joking. I'm not gonna bug Max with that.
Hey, Shannon, we love you. Everybody loves you, Shannon.
How's it going? All right. Well,
miss you.
Oh, goodbye. Thanks for the talk, Jace. Thank you, everyone. Big hugs. And Max, again, you're always welcome anytime. Just hit me up.
All right, I'll be here. Just let me know. All right, guys. All right. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everyone. I'm going to play the fun video.
Roll that footage.
Here we go.
You're such a pro.